young men and women, as I said, Savior's Day, came around me to give their life to preserve my life. And I was just fortunate that I've guided them in a way that none of them have lost their lives trying to protect me and mine.
The evolution of Minister Farrakhan has had several points that I don't know if you ever will be able to shake. The kind of questions that people continue to ask no matter how much time passes. And one of those, obviously, is about Brother Malcolm. And I've heard stories and interviews where I think you've even admitted to being engaged in helping to create the environment through some of your writings and some cartoons. But how do you feel as you enter into the final third of your life?
Oh, thank you. Well,
about the fact that people continue to ask that question, because I don't really want you to answer the question, were you involved? Because I'm more concerned with the...
I was not involved, but you know, if you go back in time, when Brother Malcolm was assassinated, New York had 11 daily newspapers. All up from that time to the 1980s, you couldn't read any periodical that mentioned Louis Farrakhan in connection with Brother Malcolm's assassination. But when I arose and 19,000 people came out in Los Angeles and nearly 50,000 couldn't even get into the Madison Square Garden and the other arena that holds 6,000, we packed that place out in the midst of controversy, where people were saying, who do you want, Farrakhan? How do you want him? Dead. Well, Farrakhan was emerging now as a voice for black people. When I left Madison Square Garden, some of the papers were calling Farrakhan the premier leader among black people, because no other black person was drawing those kinds of crowds. Well, how does the enemy react to that? Since they had no living person to put against me that could amount to a real, I would say, aversion to the minister, then they raised my brother from the dead. Do you know that when Brother Malcolm was assassinated, the papers rejoiced at his death? Go back and read. Do you know that Brother Malcolm, in 1965, when he was assassinated, was called by the Anti-Defamation League the leading black anti-Semite? Do you know that it was Brother Malcolm who exposed the real powers behind the NAACP and the Civil Rights Movement? Do you know that it was Brother Malcolm who put on our reading list the protocols of the learned elders of Zion? Brother Malcolm was no fool. If Brother Malcolm could come back today and see himself on a stamp, a U.S. government stamp, he wonder what happened. Because he did not like the U.S. government. You know his speech, if you know his speech.
Yes.
I was with him all during that time. When I split with Brother Malcolm was when he split with Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was always my man. I loved Brother Malcolm because he was Elijah Muhammad's greatest helper. So when he split from Elijah Muhammad and I split from him, he began attacking the moral character of his teacher. Well, I'm a follower of Elijah Muhammad. I wrote in the paper and defended the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And when they started bringing Brother Malcolm up, Mr. X, and then made a movie on his life, but the real movie was to damn the image of Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. And to bring Brother Malcolm back was to really say to the young black people who this man became a hero to, Farrakhan killed him. So that some young black man with a gun in his hand would think that they're doing God a favor by killing Louis Farrakhan. The aim of the enemy has never changed. They don't love Malcolm today. They didn't love him then. But they'll choose a dead Malcolm over a live Farrakhan. To make Louis Farrakhan a party to the murder. It's true, when I wrote critical of Brother Malcolm, that an atmosphere was being created. Out of that atmosphere, he was assassinated. But it was Brother Malcolm himself who started that atmosphere by the charges that he made against his teacher, which we were bound to defend. And in defending, there's charges, there's counter charges, and who benefits? FBI sitting back, the enemy sitting back. Now we got them fighting and killing each other. And that's what they would like to do today.
Well, and what has been the difference? I mean, if we look at that environment, or whether we look at the United Slaves and the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and Brother Karanga and Brother Bobby and others.
It was the U.S. government and the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover.
Absolutely. But here's my question, because many young people don't know about COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, and don't know about the FBI's role. But I guess my question to you, in being an elder at this point, is as we see these kind of things play out, even at the local level, with young people on the block who kill their own brothers and their own sisters as a result of innuendo and rumor that's cast out, what would you say to the community about how you would handle that situation differently as a result of what you've been able to see in your life?
Well, naturally, with time, you should grow wiser. If Malcolm had been alive today and Martin had been alive today, we would probably be in a much better position and condition. But God is the best knower, and we lost Malcolm and we lost Martin. And here we are. But we're a long ways from where we were in the 60s, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad changed the language from Negro to black. I'm light-skinned, but I'm a black man. Then I was in league and in sympathy with black people, not only in America, but in the Caribbean, in Central and South America, in Africa, in the Isles of the Pacific. I saw them as my brother and my sister. So the language at that time was, how you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? 30 years later, what's the language? Yo, dog, what's up, dog? And then the N-word. See, Elijah Muhammad struck the N-word from the vocabulary of all Muslims. We never use that kind of language to describe your brother, because if you use that kind of language, that tells you what you think of your brother. So look at the condition of our community today. We weren't killing each other wholesale then like we're doing now. And it's because we don't have a mind that that's my brother, that's my sister. No, you not in my gang, you not using the right color, you not giving the right sign, you live on the wrong side of the tracks, then you are my enemy. So the enemy has won that phase of the battle, and we have lost. And the thing that you just said was, the young people don't know about the counterintelligence program. Why don't they know? Young people today don't know what their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers, and their great-great-grandfathers went through to bring us to where we are today. My own granddaughter, when we were in Detroit, went to the museum, the Charles Wright Museum of African History, and she saw the beauty of Africa and then the fall of her ancestors in slavery. And she was crying all the way through it and came home to me and said, Grandpa, I didn't know that we went through something as deep as that? Well, there's the story. If these young people don't know what their grandparents went through, what their parents went through, what we came through to get to this juncture, how then can there ever be continuity in struggle? Harry Belafonte was at Howard University, and he came back and he said to me, Brother Farrakhan, the children do not know their recent history, much less the history of slavery. And so we're at a loss now. So we've got to turn all the way back around. If we want to win this generation, we have to go back in the schools and teach them about themselves so they'll have a healthy respect for themselves. And